Shalom. I am Rabbi Nathan Davidovich, speaking to you on behalf of the webyeshiva.org, speaking to you from Efrat, Israel. I'm going to discuss this week's Torah reading, the Parsha of Matos. In this week's Torah reading, we have the command by God to have the children of Israel take vengeance upon the Midianites who sinned, who actually caused the Jewish people to sin and to become almost devastated by a great plague. This particular short Torah is going to discuss the importance of anger management and controlling anger. We live in a time right now where it is so easy for people to get angry. You're driving down the road and somebody pulls in front of you and cuts in front of you short. Cuts right in front of you. Somebody cuts in front of you in a line. Somebody says something you don't agree with. Your immediate reaction is to become angry. We have to learn to control that anger. And how do we learn that from this parsha? So after the children of Israel return from the mission that they were sent on, the Torah says, Vayiksof Moshe al Pekudi Achayil. Moshe became angry at the returning soldiers because they had not done what he asked them to do. And what is the punishment for the anger? A few sentences later, it says that Vayomer Elazar HaKohen El Anshe HaTzava, Elazar the Kohen, the high priest, said to the men of the battle, "This is what you have to do to cleanse utensils, to make them pure for use, that you captured in this war." It's very unusual. Moses is standing right there, but it's Elazar, the high priest who gives the direction. Normally it would be Moshe. So what happened? So Rashi says that what happened was that Moses became angry, as I've said a moment ago, and because of the anger, he lost his ability to give over a Devar Torah, to talk coherently. It just left him. His knowledge left him for that moment. And therefore it had to be Elazar HaKohen who gave this over to Bnei Yisrael. The concept of anger, here Moses is the epitome of the Jewish people and of Torah giver to the world. He spoke directly with God, and yet he forgot. That was the punishment. The Gemara in Pesachim says this proves that any person who becomes angry, if he is a Torah scholar, his wisdom leaves him. And they learned that this is what happened with Moses. His wisdom left him, and this punishment was that Elazar was giving over the law that Moses normally would have done. There's an interesting comment, number of comments actually, that Rabbi Shia Twersky, Oliver Shalom, brings in the name of Rabbi Yehuda Leib Kassman, who was the spiritual advisor, the mashgiach of the Hebron Yeshiva before the Jewish community was wiped out in Hebron in the 1929, 35, that area. And he says, why is this? He says, imagine the scene. Moses is standing by silently, unable to speak. And Moses had such Torah knowledge that after he died, hundreds of laws were forgotten and had to be discovered again. But Rabbi Chasman says it wasn't a punishment. It wasn't a punishment that Moses received, but rather it was a natural phenomenon. He says the toxic effects of rage are a natural phenomenon. And he gives an example. A person who puts his hand into a fire, the hand gets burned. It's not a punishment. It's the natural consequence of your action. And he said, similarly, the loss of your powers of understanding due to getting into a rage, due to getting angry, is a natural consequence. There's an interesting story told in the Gemara, Shabbat. It's talking about control of anger. And there was a situation that the Gemara brings down. It says that a person should always be patient like Hillel. And the Gemara relates an incident involving two people. And they made a bet with each other. And they bet with each other and they said, look, whoever can make Hillel angry, I will reward that person with 400 zuz. And if you can't make him angry, you pay me the 400 zuz. So this one person said, yeah, no problem. I'm up to the challenge. I'll make him angry. And he goes to Hillel's house. And he shouts outside the door. It was just before, it was Friday. Friday's a busy day getting ready for Shabbos. He says, is Hillel here? Does Hillel live here? Hillel comes out. And he says, yes, my son, how can I help you? He says, I have a very important question to ask you. He says, go ahead and ask. And he asks him a question like, why are the heads of the Babylonians oval? And he said, my son, you've asked a significant question. The reason is because they don't have midwives who can properly deliver them, and therefore their heads are misshapen. And then he waited an hour, this person, and he came back again. Again, stood outside the house, said, is Hillel here? Hillel comes out again. And he asks him again, he says, can I ask you a question? Ask my son, he says. He says, why are the residents of this place called Tadmor, why do they have bleary eyes? And he said, you've asked a significant question, my son. It's because they live in a sandy area and their eyes get full of sand. It causes them to have bleary eyes. Thank you. The guy leaves, comes back, in 1 hour again, is Hillel here? And he says, comes out, he says, yes, my son, how can I help you? I have a very important question. He said, why do Africans have wide feet? And Hillel says, you've asked a significant question. The reason is because they live in marshlands, and their feet are widened to enable them to walk through these swampy areas. The man says to him, I have many questions to ask, but I'm afraid that you'll get angry. And Hillel said to him, ask as many questions as you want. I won't get angry. And the man then said, are you the great Hillel, the leader, the Nasi of Israel? And he says, yes, I am. That's what they call me. And he said, then I pray that there shall never be anybody else in Israel like you. So Hillel said, thank you. Why do you say that, my son? He says, because of you not getting angry, I have lost 400 zuzim. And Hillel says, be careful of your spirit. Be careful not to get angry and avoid things like this. And Hillel is worthy of having you lose not only this 400 zuzim that you lost, but another 400 zuzim. Anger management. Control your anger. It leads to no good. Thank you for listening on behalf of the webyeshiva.org. I wish everybody a Shabbat Shalom, and a Shabbat where we appreciate the light of the great Shabbat and learn to live a life without anger.